Priya sat quietly in the small waiting room, her fingers nervously playing with the strap of her handbag. The white walls around her felt cold and empty, just like how she had been feeling for the past 5 years. At 28, she had tried everything to start a family, but nothing seemed to work. Dr. Williams looked at the test results one more time before calling Priya into her office. What she saw on those papers made her stomach turn. This wasn't just another case of unexplained fertility issues. The genetic markers in Priya's blood told a story that would shock anyone who heard it. "Please, sit down," Dr. Williams said softly as Priya entered the room. The doctor had been working with fertility patients for over 15 years, but she had never seen anything like this before. Priya's story began when she was just 13 years old. Her parents, Raj and Meera, had received a letter from a medical research company. The letter promised something amazing, a new treatment that would protect their daughter from ever getting sick with serious diseases. It sounded too good to be true, but the company offered to pay them a large sum of money for participating. Back then, Raj worked at a small factory and barely made enough money to pay rent. Meera cleaned houses for wealthy families, coming home tired every night. When they saw that letter offering them more money than they made in a whole year, they thought it was a blessing from above. The company called it the Future Health Program. They said children who joined would never have to worry about cancer, heart disease, or other scary illnesses. What parent wouldn't want that for their child? Raj and Meera signed the papers without asking too many questions. Priya remembered. Going to a big building with shiny floors and people in white coats. They gave her shots and pills, telling her she was lucky to be chosen for something so special. The doctors were kind and always smiling. They made her feel like she was part of something important. For months, Priya visited the clinic every week. The treatments didn't hurt, and she felt fine afterward. Her parents were happy because they were getting paid regularly. The family moved to a better apartment and bought new clothes. For the first time in years, they didn't have to worry about money. But something strange started happening when Priya turned 18. All her friends were talking about getting married and having babies someday. Priya tried to imagine herself as a mother, but the feeling never came naturally to her. She dated nice men, but whenever they talked about children, she felt empty inside. When Priya turned 23, she married Arjun, a kind man who worked at a bank. They were happy together and decided to start trying for a baby right away. Month after month passed, but nothing happened. Priya went to doctor after doctor, but no one could find anything wrong with her. "Maybe you're just stressed," one doctor said. "Try to relax, and it will happen naturally." "Sometimes these things take time," another doctor told her. "Don't worry so much about it." But Priya knew something wasn't right. She could feel it deep in her bones. Her body felt different from other women, like something important was missing. Arjun was patient at first, but as years went by, he became frustrated. He wanted children badly, and when Priya couldn't give him that, their marriage started falling apart. They tried treatments and spent all their savings on fertility doctors, but nothing worked. "Maybe we should adopt," Priya suggested one day. "It's not the same," Arjun replied, his voice filled with disappointment. "I want my own child, my own blood." Their relationship became cold and distant. Arjun started staying late at work and avoided talking about the future. After 3 years of trying, he finally asked for a divorce. Priya's heart broke into a million pieces, but she couldn't blame him. She felt like she was broken, like she wasn't a real woman. After the divorce, Priya moved back in with her parents. Raj and Meera felt terrible seeing their daughter so sad, but they didn't know how to help her. They watched as she went from one relationship to another, always ending the same way. When men found out she couldn't have children, they left. Dr. Williams had been studying Priya's case for weeks now. The blood tests showed something that shouldn't exist in nature. Priya's reproductive system had been changed at the genetic level, altered in a way that made pregnancy impossible. But this wasn't a natural condition or a random medical problem. Someone had done this to her on purpose. The doctor looked at more files on her computer. Over the past few months, she had seen 3 other women with the exact same genetic changes. All of them had been part of the same Future Health program when they were teenagers. All of them were now unable to have children. Dr. Williams realized she was looking at something much bigger and more frightening than a simple medical mystery. This was evidence of illegal human experiments conducted on children whose parents thought they were helping their kids. As Priya sat across from her, still hoping for good news, Dr. Williams faced an impossible choice. Should she tell Priya the truth about what had been done to her? Should she expose the people responsible, even if it meant putting herself in danger? The doctor looked at Priya's hopeful face and made a decision that would change both their lives forever. Some truths were too important to keep hidden, no matter what the cost might be. "Priya," Dr. Williams said slowly, "I need to tell you something very important about your condition. But first, I want you to know that what I'm about to share with you will be difficult to hear." Priya's hands started shaking as Dr. Williams opened a thick file on her desk. The doctor's face looked serious, more serious than Priya had ever seen before. Something in the doctor's eyes told her that her life was about to change completely. "What I'm going to tell you will sound impossible," Dr. Williams began carefully. "But I need you to listen to everything before you react." The doctor explained that Priya's fertility problems weren't natural. They weren't caused by stress, age, or bad luck. Someone had deliberately changed her body when she was just a teenager. The Future Health program that her parents thought would protect her had actually stolen something precious from her: her ability to become a mother. "That's impossible," Priya whispered, her voice barely audible. "You're saying someone did this to me on purpose? But why?" Dr. Williams showed her the genetic test results, pointing to specific markers that shouldn't exist in any human being. These changes had been made in a laboratory, designed to shut down her reproductive system permanently. It was like someone had flipped a switch inside her body, turning off her dreams of motherhood forever. "The program you were part of wasn't about preventing diseases," the doctor continued. "It was a secret experiment. They were creating people who could never have families, people who would dedicate their entire lives to work without any distractions." Priya felt like the room was spinning around her. All those years of thinking she was broken, all those nights crying herself to sleep, all those relationships that ended because she couldn't give men what they wanted, none of it was her fault. Someone had stolen her future before she even knew what it meant. That night, Priya drove to her parents' house with tears streaming down her face. She found Raj and Meera watching television in their small living room, the same room where they had first read that letter about the Future Health program 15 years ago. "Mama, Papa," Priya said, her voice breaking. "We need to talk about that program I was in when I was 13. Meera's face went pale immediately. Raj turned off the television and stared at his daughter with fear in his eyes. They had been dreading this conversation for years. "What about it, Beta?" Meera asked, though her voice was already shaking. Priya told them everything Dr. Williams had explained. She watched as her parents' faces changed from confusion to horror to something that looked like guilt. When she finished talking, the room fell completely silent. "We didn't know," Raj whispered finally. "We thought we were helping you. They told us you would never get sick." But then Meera did something that broke Priya's heart completely. She started crying and couldn't look at her daughter's face. "Mama, what is it?" Priya asked. "What aren't you telling me?" Through her tears, Meera confessed the truth that had been eating at her for years. After Priya turned 18, the research company had contacted them again. They explained what the real purpose of the program had been and offered to pay the family more money to keep quiet about it. They said if we told anyone, they would take away everything we had bought with their money, Mira sobbed. They said we would go to jail for participating in the program. We were scared, Beta. We were so scared, Raj added with shame in his voice. They've been sending us money every month for the past 10 years. We used it to pay for your wedding, to help with your medical bills, to buy this house. Every time you came to us crying about not being able to have children, we knew the truth, but we were too afraid to tell you. Priya felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. Her own parents had watched her suffer for years, knowing exactly why she couldn't have children, and they had said nothing. They had taken money in exchange for her pain. You knew? Priya asked, her voice getting louder. All those years I thought something was wrong with me. All those doctors I went to, all the money I spent on treatments that would never work. You knew the whole time? We wanted to tell you, Raj said desperately. But they threatened us. They said terrible things would happen if we spoke about it. So you chose money over your daughter's happiness? Priya stood up, her whole body shaking with anger and hurt. You watched me get divorced, watched me hate myself, watched me think I was worthless as a woman, and you said nothing? Mira reached for her daughter's hand, but Priya pulled away. Beta, please understand. We were trying to protect our family. Protect your family? Priya laughed bitterly. You destroyed your family. You destroyed me. She walked toward the door, then turned back to look at her parents one last time. I trusted you. I came to you when I was broken, and you comforted me, knowing that you were part of the reason I was broken. How could you do that to your own child? Where are you going? Mira called after her. I don't know, Priya replied, but I can't be here anymore. I can't look at you right now. As Priya drove away from her childhood home, she realized that she had lost more than just her ability to have children. She had lost her faith in the people who were supposed to love and protect her most. Her parents had chosen fear and money over their daughter's well-being. But somewhere in her pain and anger, a new feeling was growing. For the first time in her life, Priya wasn't blaming herself for her problems. She knew who the real enemies were now, and she was determined to make them pay for what they had done to her and probably many other innocent people. Dr. Williams had given her a phone number before she left the office, telling her there were others like her who had been gathering evidence. Tomorrow, Priya would make that call and begin fighting back against the people who had stolen her dreams. 3 days passed before Priya found the courage to call the number Dr. Williams had given her. She had spent those days alone in her small apartment, crying, thinking, and trying to understand how her entire life had been built on lies. When she finally picked up the phone, her hands were still shaking. Hello? A woman's voice answered after 2 rings. Dr. Williams gave me this number, Priya said quietly. She said there are others like me. What's your name? The woman asked gently. Priya. I was part of something called the Future Health Program when I was 13. There was a pause. Then the woman's voice became warmer. Priya? My name is Dr. Lisa Chen. I've been waiting for your call. Can you meet me tomorrow evening? There are some people you need to meet. The next evening, Priya drove to an address in a quiet part of the city. It was a small veterinary clinic that looked normal from the outside, but Dr. Chen led her through a back door and down some stairs she never would have noticed. Underground, there was a hidden room filled with computers, medical equipment, and scientific papers covering every wall. Welcome to our little resistance group, Dr. Chen said with a sad smile. This is where we've been working to undo what was done to all of you. In the room, Priya met 3 other people who had lived through the same nightmare she had. There was Rohit, a 30-year-old man who had discovered the truth when he tried to donate blood, and the doctors found the same genetic changes in his system. His wife had left him 2 years ago because they couldn't have children. Then there was Kavita, a brilliant scientist who had been part of the program as a child and now spent all her time trying to find a way to reverse what had been done to them. She worked during the day at a regular job, but every night she came here to continue her research. The third person was Dr. Michael Torres, an older man who looked tired and guilty. He had once worked for the company that ran the Future Health program, but when he learned what they were really doing to children, he quit his job and started helping the victims. "How many of us are there?" Priya asked, looking around the small group. "We know of at least 50 people across the country," Dr. Chen explained. "But there could be hundreds more who don't even know the truth yet." Kavita showed Priya the research they had been doing for the past 3 years. Using stolen documents and equipment they had bought with their own money, they had been working to create a treatment that might be able to fix the genetic changes. "We've tested it on laboratory animals," Kavita explained, pointing to charts and graphs that Priya didn't understand. "In mice and rabbits, we were able to restore normal reproductive function, but humans are much more complicated." Dr. Torres looked ashamed as he added, "The company that did this to you was working for powerful people who wanted to create a generation of workers who would never be distracted by family responsibilities. They thought people without children would be more loyal, more focused on their jobs." "That's sick," Priya said, feeling angry all over again. "They treated us like we were experiments, not human beings." "The worst part," Dr. Chen continued, "is that they're still operating. They've moved their program to other countries now. But they're still doing this to children whose parents think they're helping them get better medical care." Rohit clenched his fists as he spoke. "My marriage ended because of what they did to me. I felt like less of a man, like I was broken. My wife said she married me to have a family, and when that became impossible, she couldn't look at me the same way." Priya understood exactly how he felt. "I went through the same thing. I thought there was something wrong with me for years." Kavita pulled out a folder filled with medical reports. "We think we're close to a breakthrough. The treatment we've developed might be able to reverse the genetic changes, but it's dangerous. We've only been able to test it on animals so far." "How dangerous?" Priya asked. Dr. Chen looked serious. "In our animal tests, about 30% didn't survive the treatment. Their bodies couldn't handle the genetic changes we were making. But for those who did survive, their reproductive systems became completely normal again." The room fell quiet as everyone thought about what this meant. They had a possible cure, but it might kill them in the process. "There's something else you need to know," Dr. Torres said quietly. "The company knows we exist. They've been watching us, and they know we're close to exposing them. We think they might try to shut us down soon." "What do you mean, shut us down?" Priya asked, though she was afraid to hear the answer. "These people have a lot of money and power," he explained. "They've been paying off government officials, doctors, and scientists for years to keep this quiet. They won't let us ruin their plans without a fight." Kavita stood up and looked directly at Priya. "That's why we need to act fast. We're ready to try the treatment on a human volunteer, but it has to be someone who understands the risks and is willing to take them." "I'll do it," Priya said without hesitation. Everyone stared at her in surprise. "You don't understand," Dr. Chen said. "There's a good chance you won't survive." Priya looked around the room at these people who had become like family to her, people who understood her pain in a way no one else ever could. "I understand perfectly," she said firmly. "I've been dead inside for years anyway. If there's a chance to get my life back, to prove that what they did to us can be undone, then it's worth the risk." The night before the treatment, Priya couldn't sleep. She sat at her kitchen table writing letters to everyone who had mattered in her life. One letter was for her parents, even though she was still angry with them. Another was for Arjun, her ex-husband, explaining why their marriage had really failed. The third letter was for Dr. Williams, thanking her for having the courage to tell the truth. "If something happens to me tomorrow," she wrote, "I want everyone to know that I chose this. For the first time in my adult life, I'm making a choice about my own body and my own future." The treatment began early in the morning in the hidden laboratory beneath the veterinary clinic. Dr. Chen and Kavita had prepared everything carefully, checking and double-checking every piece of equipment. Rohit held Priya's hand as they inserted the IV line that would deliver the genetic therapy into her bloodstream. "You're the bravest person I know," he whispered to her. "No," Priya replied with a weak smile. "I'm just tired of being afraid." The first few hours went smoothly. Priya felt normal, just a little sleepy from the medications they had given her to help her relax. Dr. Chen monitored her heart rate, blood pressure, and other vital signs every few minutes. Everything looked good, but around noon, things started to change. Priya began feeling hot, then cold, then hot again. Her temperature started rising and she began sweating heavily. Dr. Chen looked worried as she checked the monitors. "This is normal," Kavita said, though her voice didn't sound confident. "Her body is fighting the changes. It's supposed to happen." By evening, Priya's fever had gotten much worse. She was shaking uncontrollably, and sometimes she couldn't remember where she was. Dr. Chen and Kavita took turns staying by her side, wiping her forehead with cool cloths and giving her medicine to bring down the fever. "Maybe we should stop the treatment," Dr. Chen suggested during one of Priya's quieter moments. "No," Priya managed to say through chattering teeth. "Keep going. I can handle this." The second day was even harder. Priya's body seemed to be at war with itself. Her heart would race, then slow down, then race again. She couldn't keep food down, and she drifted in and out of consciousness. During her awake moments, she could see the fear in everyone's eyes. Rohit never left her side. He held her hand and talked to her even when she couldn't respond, telling her stories about his childhood, about dreams he had for the future if the treatment worked for both of them. "You have to fight, Priya," he said during one of her worst moments. "You're not just doing this for yourself. You're doing it for all of us, for all the children who might be saved from going through what we went through." On the second night, something terrible happened. Priya's heart stopped beating for almost 6 minutes. Dr. Chen and Kavita worked frantically to bring her back, using every piece of emergency equipment they had. The small underground room filled with the sound of machines beeping urgently. "Come on, Priya," Dr. Chen said as she performed chest compressions. "Don't give up now. We're so close." When Priya's heart finally started beating again, everyone in the room was crying. She was unconscious, but she was alive. They had almost lost her, but somehow she had fought her way back. The third day brought a miracle. When Priya woke up, her fever was gone. Her heart rate was steady. The machines that had been beeping urgently for 2 days were now showing normal readings. She felt weak, but for the first time in years, she felt different in a way she couldn't explain. "How do I look?" she asked Kavita with a tired smile. "Like someone who just won the biggest fight of her life," Kavita replied, tears in her eyes. Dr. Chen ran blood tests throughout the day, and the results were incredible. The genetic markers that had made Priya infertile were disappearing. Her body was healing itself, rewriting its own programming back to what it should have been all along. But their celebration was interrupted by Dr. Torres, who burst into the room looking panicked. "We have a problem," he said. "Government agents raided my apartment this morning. They took everything, my computer, my files, all the evidence I had about the program. I think they're coming for all of us." As if his words had summoned them, they could hear footsteps and voices upstairs in the veterinary clinic. Someone was searching the building, getting closer to their hidden laboratory. "They found us," Dr. Chen whispered. Kavita quickly started copying all their research onto multiple flash drives, while Dr. Torres helped Priya get dressed. She was still weak from the treatment, but she could walk. "There's a back exit through the old storm drain," Kavita said, stuffing the flash drives into Priya's jacket pockets. "Take these. Our research, our proof, it's all here. If something happens to us, you have to make sure the world knows the truth." "I'm not leaving without you," Priya protested. "You have to," Dr. Chen said firmly. "You're living proof that the treatment works. You're our hope for the future." The footsteps were getting louder. They could hear someone trying to find the entrance to the basement laboratory. Rohit kissed Priya's forehead quickly. "Go. Live the life you were supposed to have. Have the family you were meant to have. Make this mean something." With tears in her eyes, Priya crawled through the narrow storm drain that led out of the building. Behind her, she could hear shouting and the sound of doors being broken down. Her friends, the people who had risked everything to save her, were being caught. But she was free, and for the first time in 15 years, her body was truly her own again. 6 months later, Priya stood in front of a mirror in a small apartment in Toronto, Canada. Her hand rested gently on her growing belly, feeling the tiny movements of the baby inside her. The girl she was carrying would never know the pain her mother had endured, would never have her future stolen by people who saw children as experiments. Getting to Canada hadn't been easy. After escaping from the laboratory that night, Priya had spent weeks hiding, moving from one cheap hotel to another. The flash drives Kavita had given her contained years of research and evidence about the Future Health Program, but Priya didn't know who she could trust with such dangerous information. She finally contacted a journalist named Amy Rodriguez, who had written articles about unethical medical experiments in the past. When Priya showed her the evidence, Amy's face went pale. "This is bigger than anything I've ever seen," Amy said, looking through the files. "We're talking about a government conspiracy that affected hundreds of innocent children. This could bring down some very powerful people." Amy helped Priya get the evidence to news outlets around the world. Within days, the story was everywhere. Television reporters, newspaper journalists, and online bloggers all picked up the story of the Future Health Program and the children whose lives had been destroyed by it. The public reaction was immediate and angry. People demanded answers from government officials. Parents who had enrolled their children in similar programs years ago began demanding medical tests. Lawyers started filing lawsuits on behalf of all the victims. But Priya couldn't stay in the United States to see what happened next. The same people who had raided the laboratory were looking for her, and Amy warned her that staying would be dangerous. "There's an immigration lawyer in Toronto who helps people in situations like yours," Amy told her. "His name is David Kim. He's helped other whistleblowers get to safety." When Priya met David in his small office in Toronto, she was surprised by how young he looked. He had gentle eyes and a kind smile that made her feel safe for the first time in months. "Tell me everything," he said. And Priya found herself sharing not just the facts of her case, but her feelings, her fears, and her hopes for the future. David worked for weeks to get Priya asylum in Canada. He argued that she was a refugee fleeing persecution for exposing a government conspiracy. When the Canadian authorities finally granted her request, Priya cried with relief. "Thank you," she said to David. "You saved my life." "You saved your own life," he replied. "You were brave enough to speak the truth when it mattered most." As weeks turned into months, Priya and David spent more time together. He helped her find an apartment, learn about Canadian health care, and navigate her new life. Slowly, friendship turned into something deeper. "There's something I need to tell you," Priya said one evening as they walked along the waterfront. "Because of what was done to me, I might never be able to have children. The treatment worked, but the doctors aren't sure if it was completely successful." David stopped walking and turned to face her. "Priya, I care about you, not about what you can or can't give me. If we're meant to be together, we'll figure out the rest as we go." 2 months later, when Priya discovered she was pregnant, she couldn't believe it. The treatment had worked completely. Her body had healed itself so thoroughly that she was able to conceive naturally, something she had thought would never be possible. Meanwhile, back in the United States, the investigation into the Future Health Program was making headlines every day. Dr. Chen had been released from jail after agreeing to testify about what she had discovered. Kavita's research had been used to help other victims get the treatment they needed to reverse their condition. Dr. Torres, despite being arrested, had been granted immunity in exchange for providing information about how the program had operated. He testified before Congress about the government officials and corporate executives who had known what was happening to innocent children. The real victory, Dr. Chen told reporters, isn't just that we stopped this program. It's that we proved these genetic changes could be reversed. Every victim of this program now has hope for a normal life. Rohit had been one of the first to receive the treatment after Priya's success proved it was safe. His wife, who had divorced him years earlier, reached out when she learned the truth about why they couldn't have children. They were now working on rebuilding their relationship. As Priya prepared for her daughter's birth, she received letters from victims of the program all over the world. Parents wrote to thank her for giving their children hope. Young adults who had suffered like she had wrote to tell her that her courage had inspired them to demand the medical care they deserved. The day her daughter was born, Priya held the tiny girl in her arms and whispered, "Your name is Hope, because that's what you represent. You're proof that no one can steal our future permanently. You're proof that love and determination can overcome anything." David stood beside her hospital bed, tears in his eyes as he looked at his new family. "She's perfect," he said softly. "She's free," Priya replied. "She'll grow up knowing that her body belongs to her, that her choices are her own, and that her parents will always tell her the truth." Through the hospital room window, Priya could see the Toronto skyline stretching toward the horizon. Somewhere, out there, other victims of the Future Health Program were starting new lives, having families they thought they'd never have, and proving that human connection and determination could overcome even the most systematic attempts to control people's destinies. Priya's journey from victim to survivor to mother was complete, but her impact on the world was just beginning. Her daughter would grow up in a world where such experiments were illegal, where victims had rights, and where one person's courage to speak the truth had changed everything.